I think we're episode 24 of
Wow.
the New Jack Swing podcast with myself, Stevie, and Sheldon. How you guys doing?
Good
Doing
evening.
well.
Yes, yeah. It seems like it's been a minute, but yes, Super Bowl. So we didn't meet last week. It was the Super Bowl, and then the week after before that we had Idris Muhammad stepping in for Sheldon. So yeah, so it's good to have the gang back again. Um, how's it been? I mean, you guys had a good Super Bowl week and everything.
Yeah, everything was good. The weather was kind of, got some snow, but everything was good.
Okay, okay. And Stevie still auditioning for Santa Claus come December.
Oh, come on. I've actually had quite a sad and a bit of a shocker weekend. A very good music buddy of mine passed away suddenly on
Oh,
Friday morning.
wow.
He ran Vinyl Exchange Records in Manchester for about 30 years, and I've known him about 20
Wow.
years, and I'd go in there on a Friday.
Hmm.
And it was always like there's a lot of used CDs in there, a lot of used vinyl. So I'd always get some R&B and hip hop CDs from him. He'd always give me a discount. Always talk to me about what the stuff I do on the radio. I was even telling him about this podcast, and he said I'll definitely watch one of the episodes. But
Wow.
he was quite a pillar in the music scene in Manchester. And on Friday morning, apparently he was on his way to work. It was his birthday, and he suddenly passed away. Bit of a shocker, you know what I mean?
Wow.
Absolute shocker, you know. And like you say, you hear people when they say life is short, and you
Yeah.
don't quite hit you until someone you know actually suddenly goes, and it does hit you. So
Wow.
and he made the BBC. He made the BBC News here in the UK. The
Wow.
website news is a little tribute to him on there. So I'm glad he's getting
Recognition.
Hughes really, because he meant a lot to a lot of people in Manchester. So Ray Donaldson, rest in peace. I will miss you very, very much.
Wow. Yeah, sorry to hear that. Hey, Mac. Yeah, we also had Teddy's mum passed away last week.
Very
And
sad, very sad.
yes, because she was yeah, and then Eldebarge, his mum, passed away on Friday as well. So it's yeah, HMB. So yes, but anyway, it's yeah. So we do hopefully follow your friend Ray, who is a big music fan. Hopefully we can have a good show as well, and as our community comes in. Um, for those just joining us, we are doing our top 10 Usher songs. But before we start that, I take it both of you guys watched the Super Bowl halftime show, at least, if not the Super Bowl match. Um, I mean, I'll start with you, Stevie. What was your impression of Usher?
Honestly, I don't watch the Super Bowl, but I did catch up with the halftime show on YouTube. And what can I say? He's one of the last showmen, isn't he? It was a fantastic performance. You know, he's still. I can tell he's heavily influenced by Michael Jackson. He's still got that one glove on. But I mean, I really enjoyed it. You know, I kind of feel sorry for the younger Y2K generation, because I keep saying this, who they got.
Yeah.
Got Usher, you know what I mean? We had Michael Jackson. So, but yeah, brilliant performance. In
Yeah.
front of, how many was in that stadium? There must have been, 100,000, maybe even more. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean the stadium probably would have about 70 or 80,000, but it's the second largest global audience
Put an
since.
improv performance like that in front
Yeah.
of that many, incredible.
Yeah. What about you, Sheldon? Did you? I mean, I'm sure you watched the match and the show.
I didn't watch the match, but I was watching I did see the halftime show. And the halftime shows, I'm kind of like back and forth, because I haven't seen every halftime show that has come out over the few years. I've seen the most recent ones, so I'm kind of like on the fence when it comes to them. And in his case, I mean, he did a great job. It was initially, I was like, it's a lot going on, and it seemed like a lot was going on. It was more of what was going on instead of him. But I had to take a step back and then just looking at his ability to perform, because he certain songs I was listening for, and he would throw a couple lines and he would move on to the next. But when I really just took a step back and looked at what it takes to put on a performance like that, to be extremely precise, like Stevie said, as far as on entertainment value, man, he did a great job. And you talked about Michael Jackson, and I have to say this, people might not really agree with me, the public, but when you look at where he is at age, he's got to be about 45 years old now. He's got 30 years in the game, right? But he's further along at age 45, and I throw in the Beyonce as well. He's 40. If at age 45, he's further along in his career than Michael Jackson was at 45. And even though Michael Jackson passed away and didn't fulfill his final tour, I'm glad that Usher is kind of continuing that tradition of entertainment that maybe we never thought we'd see again. With the loss of Michael Jackson. So I give him a lot of credit. And then the last thing is that I love the setup, because he finished up his Vegas tour, and then right behind the Vegas tour, maybe a few weeks later, he did the Super Bowl, and then his album dropped. So it kind of reminds me of how Michael Jackson kind of like tied in these big rollouts, So yeah, I really appreciate his longevity and what he's done for R&B music, man. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, unlike the two of you, I watched the entire game and and watched this halftime show, and then finished the extra time. So I watched the whole thing. But I mean, yes, you're right, because he started off, and I thought, okay, there's been a lot of hype, and I was thinking, oh, it's maybe he's not holding it down, and then all of a sudden, he was just bringing out songs, and I'm like, this guy's got hits. And he's just bringing song after song. I was like, my goodness, look at his catalog, and the way he was just moving around. And I like the fact that he didn't overdo it. I didn't want him to have 20 people there. He had her, Alicia Keys, he had Little John, and he had Will I Am with Ludacris. It was just a nice, not too many people in there. It was his show and others supporting him, because sometimes you could have Beyonce showing off and then it just sort of tears it away. There was a lot of talk about him and Alicia Keys' performance, and I'm thinking, well, if they were actors and they had to do a scene, no one would have any uproar. So that was a big distraction there. But he really held it. And I'm thinking, this guy is an R&B artist, and he just did R&B, and that was a massive thing. And you remember, we've all seen him when he started Call Me the Mac when he was about 12 or 10 or so. To see where he's come from and what he's done, he lots of credit to him. So yeah, so what's in so
When you speak about the Alicia Keys comments that are floating around, it just goes to show you, like, this era of listeners. It just goes to show you how lost they are in terms of like R&B, in terms of people doing duets, because you don't see a lot of duets. And if you go back in time, if you watch male and female duets, and they're close together, and they're acting, it's like very theatrical with the emotion, and they're holding hands and hugging each other, and I've seen them like kiss each other, so, but it's theatrical, and it's designed that way to draw the listeners and the audience in. And with all the comments, people are talking about, man, it's Swiss Beats and this, that, and the other. It just shows you how the tradition of R&B, the essence of it. There's a lot of things that are lost on a lot of listeners, man. They just don't get it. So, it's a shame, but he did a good job.
Yeah.
I thought it was quite powerful as well. The whole, there's a bit of a segment where he went back to the crunk era with Little John, and then he's got, obviously, he's got a new track on his album called the A-Town Girl, which is a bit, and all that. I just thought, with the crowd, I thought it was a very powerful image. That a very powerful black image. That's what really strong.
And that's a good thing that you brought up, Stevie, because what he did was he slid in the whole Atlanta South culture with the HBCU marching bands and
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
skating and all of that. And it was just, when you look at the whole production of the show, it was paced very well, because to be able to do all those things and then do the uniform changes and all of that, man, you can tell a lot of thought, a lot of practice, a lot of rehearsals went in
Mm.
execute that. And I love the fact that R&B was on a grand scale in that way, to show you that, the music can still be done in a big way. And like you said, Namdi, he's not using guest as a crutch. They're
Mm.
accenting the performance. So yeah.
Yeah,
Really
and then
great.
also
I've not seen him live. I'd go and see on the strength of that.
yeah.
I would go if he came to the UK. I'd probably go to that now. I think that'd be a really good show.
Yeah, I mean, he really put in the work at his Vegas residency, and actually became such a buzz that everyone had to go and get, Tim Campbell, Teddy Riley, everyone showed up there. He shouted them out, gave them a little spot to sing, and he became really big, because he honored everyone else as well. And it just finally, it wasn't too risque. It wasn't stuff that if my kids watched it, I'll be having to close their eyes. And he really kept it decent and stuff. So, as I said, Usher really, I looked back and thought, man, especially preparing for today's show, looking back at his albums from '94 up to today, you realize, man, this guy is that 30 years?
30 years. Yeah,
30
94.
years.
4, yeah.
30 years. I mean, he's been performing. That's 9 albums. Yeah. So anyway, well, and just before we start off, has anyone listened to his new album fully? Coming Home.
Yeah. I did, and I'm gonna tell you, it's it the album is really, really good, because you hear all the Usher signatures vocally. Oh man, it's very excellent as far as him executing the songs. The songs are very good. And I went into it kind of skeptical, because sometimes the music and R&B has changed so much that sometimes when you go in, it can seem like you're just trying to like follow the trend. But he is on trend and ahead of trend with this record, man. It's very good. His vocals, man, his singing is excellent. The music
Yeah.
is
What
yeah.
about yourself, Stevie?
Really enjoying it. I'm not going to say it's a classic album by any means, but like Sheldon said, it's a good album. There's some solid tracks on there.
Mm.
I mean, I even like the A-Town Girl, which uses what's it called
Billy
from the
Billy
So,
Joel's. Yeah.
Town Girl, yeah.
You could say it's a bit cheesy, but I thought the way he drops in the chorus, I thought actually
Yeah.
that could be a single. But I'd say if you get halfway down the album, that's when it really starts to kick in then, and all the really good tracks really start to come in.
And in the era where with the streaming aspect, people drop albums, and sometimes the songs, they have a whole bunch of guests. And he doesn't have a whole lot of guests on this album, which is great.
No.
And the other people's albums are cluttered with guests, and the songs kind of like, they don't stand out individually. They don't have a sonic identity of their own. But his album, they do, man. I mean, songs like Ruin and Coming Home and Good. I mean, just the vocals.
Yeah, I like Good,
the
yeah.
music,
Mm-hmm.
Risk It All, I'm the Party, Please You. Just, man, the album is really good.
I wish he had just done 7, maybe 10 songs. I don't know why we don't go back to the 80s and just have 10.
It's a long album.
Yes, with so many.
Tracks are not long. They're not long tracks, and
Yeah.
To actually go in a record store and buy an R&B CD was just nice, because obviously in the 90s we were doing that every week. We're so spoiled. We get a great R&B album every week. Now it's like I was like, wow, I'm here picking up the new Usher CD. I was happy to hand my money over, because I know I'm not going to buy an R&B CD for another 2 or 3 months now, because it's so scarce.
I think that, because now we're in the streaming aspect of it, they could just really front load these albums with a lot of songs, but they were releasing physical product. Aside from being a double CD, he would have to do like 7 or 8 records. And when you have 7 or 8 records, man, and they're quality records, you could just play it over and over again. And I think that's what
Mhm.
we come from an era where people put out music and it's like 7 or 8, maybe 10 strong songs, but he's got about at least 15 of them on there.
I
You
mean,
know,
here's the thought, because over the last 2 or 3 years, he's been putting out the odd single out, and they've been good, strong singles. But and you think there was an album coming in, it just didn't come. It didn't come. It didn't come. And I'm thinking, if he'd have not got this Super Bowl performance, because it's timed the album, they released the album perfect with the Super Bowl. You can't get any better timing. If he'd have not got this performance, would we have got this album? I just don't know.
that's true. But you know what? I'm glad you said that, Stevie, because now we're dealing in a space where people are not really the label activity, depending on who you're signed to. That big rollout with promotion that we're accustomed to, that we've seen in the past, that doesn't exist anymore. So the Super Bowl aspect of it was really a promotion of its own. And then
Yeah.
he's already got concert dates out there, man. You go to his YouTube page. Like I went to the YouTube channel and played "Coming Home," and they've got all the dates. They've got dates, man. So in this
Yeah.
era, it's a different way that they're doing it. But yeah, I'm just glad that he's able to do it in a big way. So even still, there's a lot of other people who are still out there doing their thing, the Chris Browns and people like that. But I'm glad that he's continuing, like I said earlier, he's continuing the momentum, or he's finishing the job that Michael Jackson really didn't get a chance to finish. You know?
So the thing is, so he has left. Well, he's no longer with Sony. So both himself and L.A. Reid formed a record label called Mega.
Mm-hmm.
So L.A. Reid was even at the Super Bowl behind. They've been working on this album for a number of years now. But then they're being distributed by a new digital distribution company called Gamma. They distribute Snoop's Death Row,
Mm-hmm.
Killer Mike's Maybach music,
You mean
and
Rick Ross?
so Rick
Yeah.
Ross's Maybach, and then French Montana and Sexy Red. But anyway, but what they are is the guy named Larry Jackson, who used to be big in the music industry, and he went to Apple Music. So he's got $1 billion behind him to get this thing going. So they're going to be effective with their marketing and their streaming. They've got a lot of heavyweights in there. So good luck to Usher. So now, um, I mean, normally we do new music. Beyonce's stuff hasn't yet come out, so hopefully next week we could talk about Texas Hold'em Up, Hold'em
Well,
and
she's
and
the two singles, but the album doesn't come out until next month.
Stevie's not finding it. What children? What do you think about the single,
You
the
know,
Texas Hold'em?
I'm gonna tell you something. When you look at R&B people doing country, country is it's not a stretch. It's not a stretch. When you move aside in terms of preference, it's again, when you're looking at people of a certain age, they're seeing her. They're locked into R&B, so they don't have a reference point of artists doing different type of genres of music, and especially R&B artists. But that used to happen all the time. The Donna Summers and the Phyllis Hymans and people like that. They're doing jazz, they're doing new wave, they're doing rock, pop, dance, R&B. Shaka Khan is another one. So they don't have a reference of that. So when you see them, Beyonce doing the country, people are so plugged into Beyonce that it's, people are responding to the songs very well. It's her. I'll just say it's her take. I don't want to go on record and say, okay, it's not genuine country, because there's a lot of people that are really criticizing her, like you're doing this, but this is not real country music. Because what's happening is these contemporary people like Taylor Swift and Beyonce, now it's a threat to where their popularity in these type of messing with country music. All the people who've been doing country music for years, a lot of them they're probably scared, man, because now these people can just take their audience. But I think, I mean, the songs are what they are. It's a great interpretation. I think at this point right now, it's a good alternative switch off, because I think she's peaked. She's peaked, in the R&B side in terms of the different type of experimental aesthetic. So it's a good detour for her to go ahead and do the country aspect of it, you know. But I always tell people, hey, she's continuing. She's like, like Michael Jackson in a way is that they're innovators on the entertainment side, but in terms of creativity, they take their inspirations from other things and they kind of go off into those areas, and they make it at the least they make it very interesting, and at best it's very dynamic. So they're
Yeah.
they're okay. When I listen to it, I hit a country subtleness or whatever. But as a Beyonce fan, I respect what she does. I really do. I'm not an ultimate Beyonce fan. I think that's for like females. But there's a lot of songs of Beyonce that I really like. But I think it's a great detour. It's a great strategy coming behind the fact that there was a lot of issues with her not winning the Grammy of the year situation or whatever. But for her to drop an album right behind that, the era that we in, and I love the CD era, man. But these people now, man, especially if you're in in that big upper echelon like Usher and Beyonce, you can drop records at any time that you want, unlike years ago where you had to just wait a couple years.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
know,
I mean, Stevie, what are you?
Good luck to her. That's all I'm going to
Okay.
Because, it's like she spent the last 2 years doing her best to win over the LTBGT community, the gay crowd, because the last album was Dance. And now
Yeah.
she's doing a 360. She wants the country crowd now. I mean, you can't, the two extremes, what do you want to be? Who do you want to be as an artist? But like I say, good luck to her. That's all I'm going to say.
yeah. But
Yeah.
I'll say
Good luck to her.
I get what you're saying, but I'll just say this. I know we got to do the countdown. Is that I respect the fact that she's able to do that, man, because a lot of R&B artists, you get pigeonholed, man. They only keep you in one box. When you look at somebody like a Justin Timberlake, you went from doing NSYNC pop stuff, and then you were doing like R&B, and then you were doing like a techno aspect of it that with Timberland, and then you was doing some whatever you was doing some pseudo folk country or whatever that is. So they genre hop, man. Those pop artists genre hop. So I love the fact that when R&B people do it and they can do it well, because they've always been doing it, and I love the fact they can't be pigeonholed.
Beyonce, what is Beyonce now? Is she an R&B artist? Is she a pop artist?
Well, I'm gonna tell you, man.
To me, she belongs to the mainstream. She's a
Well,
mainstream pop artist that's come from R&B.
But you got it. But that's what Michael Jackson was. That's what Michael Jackson became. So it's a situation now that where R&B, I don't really think that they're now. When you look at true R&B, people can kind of go back to the 90s or before that. But when you look in terms of I would say right around the 2010s, when you started seeing the music change and where people were doing like the EDM, Euro dance beats, and everything changed. So the soulfulness of R&B that we remember and that we love, we're getting flashes of it, so to speak. But R&B now, based on who's doing it, it's like a hybrid. So when you look at what Rihanna does, Rihanna's coming out with music, but
She's on the phone now. She's on the phone, Sheldon. Quick.
Yeah.
Now. She's not happy.
Yeah. Anyway.
It's not traditional R&B. So but what is now? Because you look at what Usher's doing, a lot of stuff of what he's doing. There's some Afro beats there. There's a lot of different sounds going on in that album, and there's also elements of traditional R&B.
I do know she did make an Afrobeats album, and it's in the vaults. There'd have been no more perfect time to drop to got them tracks out and maybe got some features on, work with a few of the bigger Afrobeats. That would have been huge. But she's missed that train, to be quite honest. That's what she should have done. But I'm not her advisor. Like I say, good luck to her.
Good luck to her. Anyway, so with that, let's come to our main.
Let's get to Usher anyway. That's what we're here for.
Our main thing.
Usher never lets us down, does he?
No, he doesn't. So we're gonna go for our top 10, and then when we get to number one, we'll summarize our top 20 down to one. Or you can do your honorary mentions if you don't have up to 20. Do do you want to start the countdown, or do you want to do the albums?
Let's
Do
do the
the
album.
countdown. Oh, I'm going the countdown. You're going albums.
Okay. We probably could just do the albums because they're just our top three, and then we can just go. It
think
might.
if we do the albums, though, you're giving away the top 10.
Yeah,
I
well,
don't
yeah, you're right because Okay, let's just do the top 10, and then we can get to the albums when we finish, because I guess a lot of the if I had one of my favorites first, you may then realize where most of my songs are. So I can start. At number 10 for me was a track that he performed at the Super Bowl, and it came from his Confessions album, and it was. And I actually just saw the story about this where when he first heard this track, he didn't want to do it. He hated the track, and he had to be convinced because L.A. Reid knew that the second single was going to be the big single, but he needed something to sort of just catapult the track, and it was "Yeah" by featuring Little John and Ludacris. It's because at this time Little John was still making some he was he was I think he did a Dave Chappelle was making fun of him, but he was really big and stuff, and it was a really good track, and it actually still stands out today. So something different from Usher, and so that's my number 10. Yeah,
That's a good start, Namdi. Good start.
Who's next? Okay,
Sheldon.
Big
Not
Mike.
Sheldon,
Swear
you
I'm
win.
in love.
My number 10 is a ballad that comes off of 8701. Very romantic ballad. He very good narration. We talked about earlier about the theatrics, the performing element of people of songs, people singing songs, and that falls in line with that. Him just being able to deliver a song and in the first person, and you can just listen to it, and you can just really see him in that story. So, and the great background and the stacked background vocals and everything, very melodic. So that's my number 10. Can You Help Me from 8701.
Can you help me?
Can You Help Me? Yes.
Okay, that was a Jimmy and Terry production. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, I've got good memories of the track you picked, Namdi, for my early 2000s clubbing days. I used to dance along to that because I was really into crunk at the time. But yeah, my top 10 really is bereft of any real. I kind of stayed away from the big hits. I've dug deep today. A lot of album tracks. Before we came on air, I was just looking at the Namdi's. We'll probably never get to see this, but Namdi's top 10 overrated 90s producers. We're probably a bit controversial. We'll probably never get to see that, but number 10, produced by one of Namdi's overrated producers, Devontae Swing.
And that was Sheldon. That's what he was.
Sorry, Sheldon. What am I saying? Yeah. Sheldon. Yeah, from Sheldon's top 10 overrated 90s producers, I've gone in with a track produced by Devontae Swing from his debut album, a track called Whispers. Very soft R&B, mid-90s R&B track, starting at number 10 for me. It's very underrated track, very underrated Devontae Swing production.
Yeah. As I said, I did think about that one, but my number 9 was from his 8701, and
again,
yes, again, but it was another Jimmy and Terry production. It's You Remind Me. It was good. It's strange because I when I think of Usher, I don't think Jimmy and Terry, but they worked on. I think they worked on from 8701 Confessions and stuff. So they worked with him consistently. Probably did over 10 tracks with Usher. But you remind me is my number 9. Just a different vibe and different way just to see how Jimmy and Terry keep innovating themselves by depending. No, it doesn't matter who the artist is. They can really make things work. So that's my number 9. You remind me,
My number nine.
Sheldon.
My number 9 is going to be one of Usher's most mature ballads. It's from an album that obviously was kind of loosely inspired by the recent marriage that he was in at the time, and it's a title track to the album. Here I Stand. Very mature ballad. Um, Very good vocal execution. I think that's probably one of my favorite songs on the album. It was pretty much one of the albums that it was kind of soulful, but it was more low key compared to the other albums that he came out with at the time, going into Confessions. But that's my number 9. Here I Stand.
Okay. Um, yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's what's good is that everyone's, not. I mean, apart from me, not many people are going for the big ballads and
Like
the
you're
big.
going for a big, you picked a few big hits there, Namdi, and I think me and Sheldon are going to dig a little deeper by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be surprised. I mean, anyway, we do our songs later and stuff. My top 20 probably would sort of give away where I stand and stuff. But anyway, Steve, what about you? Number 9.
Well, I'll just say good evening to the listeners, and
Yeah,
they're
Big Mike,
chiming in here. Big Mike,
work it out.
Big
M
Mike
Mac,
he's got
Tim
his
Beats.
dropped his 9, he's got his 10 and 9, and then we've got M Mac, he's dropped his couple of nice gems in there. What did he go for? Number 9. I went for a soundtrack. The soundtrack was Kazam around 95, 96. Good mix of R&B and hip hop. And I went for a track that sampled the Gap Band's Outstanding. And the track was called I Swear I'm in Love. Good single. I swear I'm in love. That big conga's going, I swear I'm in love. Really enjoyed that back then. So that's my number 9. Dig a bit deep there. See, the UK guys will know all about that track.
Okay, now I do.
Out the time, spent the £16 on the import CD like we had just for that track. We've all got a nice rack of 90s soundtracks there, so
Yeah, goodness, it's yeah, I can't remember that one. I've got
heard it, have you, Namdi? Never mind. You can probably. I'll have to YouTube. I'll send you the YouTube link.
Yeah, my number 8. I actually remember when this song came out, I was working at LaFace. Well, not LaFace. Actually, it was Edmonds Entertainment.
Here he is, name dropping again.
Yes, so Tracy Edmonds was my boss, and
Hey, look at this. Hey, Tracy Edmonds.
yes, yeah. So John V was
How
signed to
long
us.
did that last, Namdi?
Yeah, it was about a good 6-7 months or so.
Only 6. Did she fire you? What happened there then? What? Did you get fired?
I would say what looking at her, I mean, she's in her late 50s now or mid 50s, but the most stunning person I'd ever seen live. Just watch it, just here in the office, always smiling, and then Babyface was just upstairs at Brandon's Way Studios, just. So if you ever see with all these, and you see him in his hallway, he still owns the building, but he was always on the top floor in his studio, just constantly working and stuff. So you hardly saw him. But anyway, when this thing came out, yes, I remember us all really. It's You Remind Me. I just like let me see. Yeah, sorry. You Don't Have to Call. And it was.
He's gone for another big hitter here.
It was when the Neptunes were doing their
same album.
Yeah, have I done this? Yeah, yeah, but I only had a few from that album, but yeah, You Don't Have to Call. I actually did like it. I mean, it was the whole vibe and stuff, especially coming away from My Way. But yes, yeah. So You Don't Have to Call. That's mine, and actually, as I said, Neptunes at their peak during that time as well. Sheldon.
Okay, my number 8 is a song that is a interpolation of a 1982 R&B record called "Penny for Your Thoughts." By the 70s group known. They made a lot of disco records. That was really their last top 10 hit back in '82, and the group was called Tavares. And the song, obviously, it comes out of the Teddy Riley camp. I Will. So when you listen to the vocoder, the background vocals, Teddy singing "A Penny for Your Thoughts," "A Nickel for a Kiss," that's the hook to the song that I was referring to. And I think Sprague may have had some um, activity in terms of making the record. So that's my favorite record off of the My Way album. So number 8.
Great
Yeah.
choice. Great choice, Namdi. Great.
So wait, you're mixing this up again. It's Sheldon. Sheldon had number 8. Sheldon had the.
Great choice, that.
Sprague mentioned that they were going to release it as a single, but then there were some copyright issues, and so they had to hold back. And I think they had to settle because of the things weren't cleared. That whole, I think the "Penny for Your Thoughts" and stuff that whoever wrote it said he didn't get his fair dues and stuff. So that stopped the single from being released.
Yeah, that was Dennis Lambert. I think Dennis Lambert wrote the song. So yeah, they stopped that. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes. So Stevie, what is your number 8?
I went for a track on the same album Sheldon's gone with, the My Way album. That track that goes 7 o'clock on the dot. Dun, 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 dun. I want to take it nice and slow. That one. Nice and slow. Was it a Jermaine Dupri production? That I can't remember.
Yep.
Yeah. Slow, slung. You can imagine you driving along in your car and it's the bass. They just go boom like that. Yeah, that's my number 7.
And what's the name of that song again?
Nice and slow.
Nice and slow.
Yeah.
Got a low slung production feel to it,
And then he had the bridge where he would spell his name out. That was like really, really popular at the time.
He just like.
I thought it was Twister at first. They call me US. USHER. Yeah, I thought it was Twister, but yeah, that was a good one. Okay. My number 7 is performed at the Super Bowl. It's strange because it was a big song, but they didn't originally put it on the album. They left it off the album, and as the album was, slowing down in sales, they did a re-release, and the track is called "My Boo" with Alicia Keys, and it was a throwback to those duets that we didn't get a lot of. Most of the time in the 90s, we were getting a female or male singing a hook. But this was, that sort of back and forth, which was done beautifully. And it's a pity we don't get those anymore. But yeah, that's one of my favorite Usher songs.
Wow.
My Boo, number 7.
What album was that again?
That was off his Confessions album.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, nice track. Yeah, big single that as well. Big single.
Yeah. Sheldon, number 7. Think of you. Okay.
Number 7 is that's mine as well.
Wow.
I love that record. It was really, I love the chemistry that he had with Alicia Keys. The video was dope. It was a great record. What can I say? The chemistry that they had, and like you said, the song wasn't added on the album. Tell me, Namdi, what was like the story behind that?
They recorded. You know what happened is that when he was coming out with Confessions, they had so many more songs that they weren't sure what to put out there, and they just had to cut a lot number of songs out. So Jermaine just said that. But when he noticed that the album was waning off, and it was like, okay, we pretty much have reached the end. They put it on the European edition, and then they actually did what they did with Boys to Men, like, okay, and the re-release of the album and put it on there, and that really catapulted the album. Confessions, sold 14 million, so it really kept the album just really, really going. So,
no, wasn't that? Didn't they come out with the what was it? They came out with an expanded version.
Yeah, that's the expanded version. So, yeah, especially in Europe, I mean, they had another 14 because Jermaine said they've recorded so many songs, and so they just put they put them on that expanded version. Yeah. So Stevie, what about you? What is your number 7?
Chin Beats and Big Mike's mentioned. Chin Beats just mentioned. You Took My Heart. That's a great track, that from the first album. Big Mike's number 7. I'm liking that. Yeah. Anyway, number 7. Yeah, I went with Sheldon's choice actually, but one up on my chart was I Will. I forgot actually it was Tavares, but I always wondered what Shaughnessy would have been like. It felt like Shaughnessy. It just sounded like a Blackstreet track the way it was produced to me.
Yeah, and that's what you like it so much. Yeah. Yes.
So you thought I will. Yeah, I do like number 7. Really like that track.
Yeah.
Still play today.
So it's strange because my number 6 is the same track.
Yeah.
I Will is my number 6, and I would admit, I knew it was a Teddy track, and I just felt just loved it because it was a Teddy track. But then, just the whole vibe, and it probably was a Blackstreet track that they had, and they just said, "Look, we got too many songs," and they just gave it to Usher and stuff. But yeah, I just loved hearing when Teddy doesn't overdo the vocoder and just at the whole back stuff. That was classic Teddy. So that was my number 6. So we've talked about it. Sheldon, what's your number 6?
Okay, so I've got 2. Let's slide into number 6. The first one is him on "I Need a Girl" with P. Diddy.
What's not his track? He was just.
But it's still a record, man. He's still the favorite. He's still an Usher record. So I love his hook. Really made that song. Even though you heard Loon and everybody rhyming on the record, his hook made that record. And there's another one that he did that was a collaboration with Little John and the East Side Boys called "Lovers and Friends." And Lovers and Friends was originally an R&B record from the 90s by a guy named Michael Sterling. He made it in 1990. He was from Miami. So that's where that song, the melody or whatever, that's where it actually came from. It's really like a remake of Lovers and Friends in that type of style. So those are my number 6 records.
And that Lovers and Friends is the name of his festival, his music, his R&B concert that he's teamed up with with Rock with Live Nation. So in Vegas, they have one of the biggest R&B festivals over 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like maybe 40 R&B acts all over in Vegas. So Lovers and Friends. So yeah, okay.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a massive stuff. Everyone goes there. Any artist just is on that. Stevie, what's your number 6?
Ooh, my number 6 is a real hardcore Usher pick this out. I'm going to even test the viewers. Any viewers remember this track? Even went out and bought it. It wasn't on any of the albums. It wasn't on a soundtrack. The year's 2005. He released a DVD called Rhythm City Volume 1. And with the DVD, it's like a concert and some videos. You got a bonus CD, and there was 3 or 4 tracks. I think they may be intended for the Confessions album, but they didn't make it. They put them on this bonus CD. Real treat for the hardcore Usher fan. And there was a couple of tracks on there produced by the Avila brothers. So I'm really name dropping now. Bobby Ross Avila, a couple of guys who always, their sound is amazing. But there's a track on it called "It Is What It Is." It had like a Stevie Wonder harmonica on it, just above min tempo. It is what it is. Kind of Michael Jackson-esque, to be quite honest. But a great track. And I'm just wondering, do any of the Chin Beats remembers it? Any of the listeners remember that? But brilliant track. Never made any of their albums, but go and check out, get yourself on Amazon or Discogs and get yourself the Rhythm City DVD CD combination. A nice little package for you there.
Okay.
And that was my number 6.
Okay. My number 5 has been mentioned, I think, by Stevie. As I said, I thought it was Usher featuring Twister for a minute, and it's nice and slow. It was such a vibe,
Yes.
such a vibe. Yeah, Usher and Jermaine just had this magic chemistry together, and I actually like the fact that Usher co-wrote a lot of his tracks. Um, which he must have learned about publishing, but it's almost like he wanted to be able to have a say in what he's doing, but also it was it was just a big stuff. It was coming of age, especially after his debut album didn't do as well as should be, but My Way sold over 7 million. So yeah, that is hey, finally checked this out. Yeah, so yeah, my number five is Nice and Slow. Um,
Yeah.
Nice choice.
He
uh, 97 was such an amazing year.
So when you look at the My Way album, it kind of reminds me the coming of age album the same way Jimmy Jam was working with Janet Jackson on the Control album. And
Mm,
one of the things that they did is that at the time, Usher and Janet, they weren't really like natural songwriters, but what they would do is they would have conversations with him. Because at the time, Usher's album didn't sell well. He was going through this whole puberty situation or whatever, and he kind of just, he went from, really hanging out with Puff as a kid to now he's hanging out with Jermaine, and Jermaine's like a mentor, and he's having conversations with him, and from those conversations are springing these songs. So it kind of reminds me of how Janet Jackson actually grew into a songwriter in terms of the collaboration aspect of it. So when you listen to those songs that he's singing, specifically that one you're talking about, it's very organic, very
mm.
organic. Good song. Um, my
Your number
number
five.
five is going to be Burn.
Burn.
Burn. Good, very good chorus, strong chorus. At a period of time in R&B, they're kind of slowly moving away from a traditional songwriting um, uh, format to where you don't know what the titles are. If you know the song and you like it and you can kind of sing along to it. But Burn, that's one of those songs that you can sing along from beginning to end, and the hook is strong. And the thing that stands out to me is I was reading an interview with Fat Joe, and he, obviously he's a rapper, the whole hard energy type situation going on. But he said them guys was on a tour bus, him and his crew, and then all of a sudden Let It Burn comes along and they all singing along to the record. So it's just an example of how Usher is able to reach across different type of listeners, man, with a lot of great songs, man. So Burn is my number five.
So, Stevie, what about yourself? What's your number
Um,
five?
Number five, I've gone for a real big hitter. It was the track that I suppose crossed him over from R&B into pop. From the My Way album, You Make Me Wanna. You Make Me Wanna. That was such a huge hit.
Mm,
Obviously, JD on production, it had a Timbaland remix, but that was probably, it was such a huge hit at the time, and it was. I maybe heard it one too many times, but I can't see us. If it's not in your top tens, I'd be shocked. And it should be anyone's top 10 really, because of what that track stands for. I think
mm.
the way it crossed over, and it still appealed to the R&B heads, and it got a
And
Yeah.
lot
then
of
the
play.
video was very good. That's around the time I saw him in concert in 97, 98. And you think he was a great performer now. He was a great performer then. I think I spoke to you earlier in terms of he was singing those songs, and then he had a set where he was doing his Bobby Brown set. And he had the Bobby Brown used to wear the derby and all. And man, he did it. Usher had the same hat and just pulled it off, man. So great song, great era for him. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. My number four, as Sheldon has just mentioned, it, and it's Burn, and it vocally. I mean, he was. I mean, the Confessions album was really, you know, the Confessions album was really a powerful album. As I said, it did over 14 million. But you know, yeah, it was just a beautiful track, and it's really kept that album going as well. But yeah, so mine was just Burn. Yeah, but we've spoken about it. Sheldon, what's your number 4?
My number 4 is almost like it's a precursor to Burn, and it's from the 8701 album. You Got It Bad. It's like a precursor. Kind of falls. It's in the same vein. Well, Burn is in the same vein of that. It's one of those heartbreak, longing type of records. Again, great lyrics, strong hook. So a lot of great things I could say about it, but that's my number 4.
Okay.
Wow.
Stevie, what about you?
You remind me of a girl that I once knew.
Oh, much higher than your mind then.
Number 4, big single, stood the test of time. Good clubbing memories, going out to clubs, hearing that in a club, dancing away to it, but try to do my little Usher shimmy there and failing miserably, but you'd sing along to it after a few beers, wouldn't you? You remind me of a girl. Great sing-along hook. Yeah, it's just a great, and it's high up there in my chart, and I think it should be. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We're getting down to the crunch there, that top 3. And my number 3, Stevie, you already mentioned it. I think Sheldon also mentioned it. You Make Me Wanna. The video, because as I said, that was the first video we saw of Usher after his debut album, and so this is after it's been. Let me look at the time. It's been 3 years we hadn't seen Usher, and he does the video and he does the dancing, and all of a sudden we're seeing a performer coming out. Thing with the chairs and everything, and it was just such a nice middle, just a vibe. I just call it the track a vibe. And this is I was being introduced to him and his collaboration with JD, and it was Usher saying, "Yep, okay." Almost like when Aaliyah left R. Kelly and worked with Timbaland and Missy, and she changed her sound and stuff like that. There was a sense of an identity being formed, and so "You Make Me Wanna" was a massive track. The box, I remember the box. Did you have to pay to dial up and request a video, something like that, text? Yeah. So yeah, that was my number. That's my number 3.
Which one was number 3, Namdi?
You Make Me Wanna.
Oh, great choice.
You
Great
Make Me
choice.
Wanna. Sheldon, what's your number 3?
Okay. My number 3 is a record that it comes from 8701. And we kind of talked about it, but to kind of set it up, Usher came out with some records. He released some songs that really didn't hit. Some of them were kind of like trendy, and one of them was called "Pop Your Collar," and the record it was kind of in the vein where it was the sound was kind of like the Bills, the
Shakespeare.
Yeah, that bouncy situation, and somewhere along the way, I guess L.A. Reid intervened and was like, "Hey, we got to go back to the drawing board." And a year later, comes out, the first single comes out, and we, You Remind Me. That's my number 3. And what I love about the record, it's the story. I like the storyline of it. I mean, the song, the vocals are great, but I just love the writing. Terry Lewis is a great writer, man. To be able to just capture that vein in terms of it speaks to itself. You remind me of someone else that I learned, a girl that I knew before, and I just love it, man. The songwriting is great. The storyline is great. So just like you said, Namdi, is that the hookup with Jermaine Dupri gave him a new identity, and then he just went to another level with 8701. It's almost like when you see Michael Jackson coming out with these albums, and each one is a next level, So 8701. I'm sorry, yeah, that's the album. But You Remind Me is my number 3.
Yeah, but you also remember this was when that album came out. It was during the time of Napster, and his whole album got leaked on Napster, and Pop Your Collar was the first track. And when it got leaked out, they had to go back and redo the whole stuff and get more tracks. So then different producers and everything. But yeah, that
I know it's
yeah,
Poppy Collar. Did Poppy? I don't think it made any albums, did it? Did it make any of the albums?
it made a re-release version of 8701. It yeah, because I've got it on that album, but it's not in the US. It didn't come out in the US because he had a video for it. The video was out and everything.
I'll
It,
tell you
it
what,
was.
that Pop Your Collar track in a club, it sounds that production, them beats in a club, incredible sound. Very
Yeah.
underrated track. That very underrated track.
So what about you, Stevie?
Number three, I'll be honest, right? I've not got like a number one Usher record. My next three all could easily be. I play them the most. The next three, they could all be number one, right? So I'm just going to state that now. But it's very, you know what? I can't let the New Jack Swing fans down. So I call me a Mac because I like that. Let's play by the rules. Is my number three. Call me a Mac. I remember it holding the 12-inch single like many of us did, or you might have got it on the Poetic Justice soundtrack. But
Yep.
I'm like, who is this? He looked like a young kid. I thought, who is this Usher? Call me a Mac. But what a great record. I had no idea he'd go on to be as big as he is now. No idea. I just saw this kid. And we were buying kids' music back then. The Boys, Immature. How many kids were doing? There were so many kids doing New Jack. Chris Pittman, there's a name for you. Remembers Chris Pittman? The New Jackers out there. But yeah, call me a Mac because I got it like that. Oh, love that record so much.
Okay.
The extended mix on the 12-inch, the remixes. Oh, and it had the sirens going in the background. It could be number one easily.
Free number one. Okay, we're down to the final two. My number two, I think this was easily one of his biggest tracks. But I think the story and the controversy around it and the video really elevated the track. A- we didn't know whether it was art imitating life and vice versa, but it was You Got It Bad. We had Chili in the video, and we went, and it was like, oh, he's dating Chili, and the whole story of infidelity and everything. It was, yeah. I mean, Usher, yeah, he had some jams, slow jams and up tempo and everything. I mean, the complete package. And because we probably see him as a kid, we probably don't appreciate him much, but he just was consistent and consistent. But yeah, You Got It Bad. Was my number two track.
Solid choice.
Yes. Sheldon.
My number two is Yeah. I mean, we talked about it.
Wow.
And the reason why I guess it's my number two, I kind of struggled because I was thinking about some other records or whatever, but I think that that record, it put him in a contemporary space with the music that was out. Obviously, it was still the ATL vibe or whatever, and I just think that it just continued to solidify him as being in the vein, ahead of the curve, being able to fluctuate between both. Where a lot of other artists could probably do the same thing, but the impact wouldn't have been the same. But I also think that the video was a major contributor to the song's impact, because just like Michael Jackson, is that they're very strong songs, and they have the commonality together, is that they make songs that are, especially the up tempos, that are performance driven. So when you hear the songs are good, and then when you see them perform them, when you see the music videos, it kind of takes the songs, to the next level. But I like, it's a fun record. It's a fun record. And then of course the intro, very, very strong. So you already know exactly what it is. So yeah.
Well, okay, that was number 2. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Steve,
Da-da-da-da.
what about you, Steve? What makes you number 2? Because
Again, I've really, really, really dug deep here. And again, the true Usher fans will know all about this record. And there's only a few of them. But I remember from about 2002 onwards up to, say, about 2007, I would call that period for me and a lot of other people, it was R&B's lost years. And what I mean by that is we weren't going out buying R&B records. We was on programs like LimeWire, Napster,
yeah.
going on blogs. And I know a lot of us have got hard drives at home with absolute tons of unreleased R&B stuff that, that just leaked. There was tons of it just leaked, never came out properly. And this track in particular, there is 2 versions of it. There is a version on was it the deluxe or the UK special edition of Confessions, right near the end. And that version is different to the one that many of us downloaded on LimeWire. Again, it was produced by the Avila brothers. It had on the original version of it, it had different ad-libs and it had a rap from Usher, whereas the one on Confessions had a rap with Rico Love on it, and it took out the ad-libs. But for me, in terms of like R&B sexual slow jams, I think this is the best Usher track. Nothing comes close to this. It was a track called Seduction. Check that one out if you've not played it recently. On
So
YouTube,
that's not the one. It's not the one with Jimmy and Terry producing. Is it different?
the Avila brothers. The Avila brothers. But go on YouTube. There's 2 versions. It's hard to find the second version because I found it the other day and it doesn't have a picture of Usher on it. But again, it's 5 or 6 minutes long, but it's a killer slow jam, killer record.
Okay.
Number 1 really, but I'm sticking with my number 1. So
Okay.
that's my number 2 anyway.
That's your number 2.
Sure.
Okay, so
I'm digging deep for you guys. I know you're tuned in tonight and could be elsewhere doing stuff, but I've give you a few to go and check out instead of all the big hitters, which
Yeah.
To David Yarding, by the way. Knockalizer. Good to have you on board, sir.
So before I get to my number 1, I want to count down some honorable mentions and then do my 10 to 1. Some tracks that could have made this. You Took My Heart with Faith Evans in the background. That was from his debut album.
Great track. Great track.
I'll Make It Right. I like the Chucky. Yeah. Love Was Here. That was from his debut album. Bad Girl. Actually, that's Jimmy and Terry that did that. Yeah. Okay. And Mark. Yep. Bad Girl. I thought that was a good one. Oh My God. OMG. I thought actually, especially seen in the Super Bowl, it was actually it was something different and stuff. Yeah. Caught Up. Just missed out. Because Usher, he was doing some good things in there. So I started. My number 10 was Yeah. My number 9 was You Remind Me. My number 8 was You Don't Have to Call. My number 7 was My Boo. Number 6 was I Will. Number 5 is Nice and Slow. Number 4 was Burn. Number 3 was You Making Me Wanna. Number 2 is You Got It Bad. And it was hard to. I had my number 1, but I had a couple of songs that just kind of straddled my number 1. And this is by a producer who some of us didn't think is good enough, thought he was just, was lucky to be considered an R&B producer.
It's not David Foster, is it?
Sorry. But this was my, I remember Coming to Mac, that was, and I kind of forgot about Usher then because I was like, oh, who's this kid? But this was the first time I remember really seeing him, seeing Puffy driving the car, the guys on the back, and you had the producer right beside Puffy, and it was, Can I Get With It? Oh, man, that's my number 1. Can You Get With It? Yeah, Devontae. But
With it. I like
don't
that.
like that.
It's
So
sexual thing. Get with it.
Doom. And that was the type of R&B that guys started when they did Goodbye Love and stuff, and
Who's
they
it produced by again, Nandy?
Mr. Devontae
Did you
Swing.
hear that, Sheldon? Did you hear that? Oh, did you hear that?
Mr. Devontae Swing. I mean, the thing about that, because that was the vibe of R&B tracks that people then H-Town took over and R. Kelly took over. That type of vibe that Devontae just said, this is what Guy did, I'm going to take it and run with it. And that, Can You Get With It? Other tracks that I put it alongside it as an honorable mention was Final Goodbye. Oh, I just love that. And Smile Again. But my number one would automatically be Can
What
You
a
Get
choice.
With It?
What a great
Devontae.
choice. Oh, I'm anticipating Sheldon's number one now. Great anticipation now.
Sheldon, okay? You want to do your honorable mention, Sheldon, and then you do your 10 to
You,
what?
Slow Jam from the My Way album, from the 8701 album, Twerk It Out, Hottest Thing, How Do I Say, and then from the Confessions album, Superstar, Caught Up, Truth Hurts, Simple Things, Bad Girl, That's What It's Made For, Do It To Me, and then also from there's the Call Me a Mac, that's my honorable mention. And then there's a song that he did on the My Way album called Bedtime. I think Babyface might have wrote that. And Nice and Slow. So those are my honorable mentions. My number one.
We'll get that number 10 first. When you 10 to 1, 10 to 2.
10 to
Oh,
1.
my 10 is Can You Help Me? 9 is Here I Stand. 8 is I Will. 7 is My Boo. 6 is I Need a Girl / Lovers and Friends. 5 is Burn. 4 is You Got It Bad. 3 is You Remind Me. 2 is Yeah. And 1 is a record that was created for the Michael Jackson Invincible sessions or whatever was submitted to Michael Jackson. And once again, I love Michael Jackson, but I don't know what was on his mind when he's turning down Joy. He's turning down a lot of records that people will go on to make hits. And this record was written by the Neptunes, and it's You Don't Have to Call. That's my number one. That's my all-time favorite.
Wow.
Usher record. What I love about the record, again, the storyline, just the twist in terms of, he's dealing with an unappreciative companion, and I like how he just jumps into it. Situations will arise, but you got to be strong about it. And the hook is very strong. And then I love the bridge where he does the Michael Jackson Rock With You.
Rock With You, yeah.
Style, bridge.
Yeah.
Can I Boogie Tonight? It's kind of like, it's almost in the vein of the, that whole Off the Wall.
Yeah, you can hear it.
You can hear it. So I love that. And of course, when you see the video, it's really dope, and you play on the whole Chili situation, the whole theme is there. And my man just gets up out of bed, gets himself together, goes to the club. Puff is there. And he's got the sneakers with the roller wheels on it, which was, when I first saw that, I was like, wow, those were super cool. But that's my favorite all-time Usher record. That's one of those records, man, that I can just play it over and over again. So that's my number one.
Nah, solid choice.
Yeah. And that was the Neptune sort of there. Do 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 do. You know how they just put in little crazy sounds in there just to say, this is a Neptune signature. But it was definitely good. As I mentioned, I remember when the video came out and I was in the label and Stevie, honorable mentions.
My honorable mentions, I'm really, really enjoying from the new album, One of Them Ones. That's my shit, one of them, bro. Oh, really, really, really enjoying that. And also Stone Cold Freak from this new album. The honorable mentions would have been Pop Your Collar, like you say, didn't make it. I don't think it made any main albums. The Many Ways and a lot of the Kyle West, I'll Be Sure productions. You always feel like with the Kyle West, I'll Be Sure ballad productions, you're in like a secret garden. It's almost like orchestration taking you in this. You just completely takes you away, doesn't it? That's the only way I can describe when you what a track that is. The many ways, you know.
It's very lush. Very lush.
Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. I like Bad Habits. Recently got released 2-3 years ago, where he's explaining to his girlfriend that he can't help but cheat. He's got some bad habits, and he makes his girlfriend sit down in the video while he does his dancing, and then about 3 minutes in, I think the beat from Computer Love comes in. Really enjoyed that single.
Just real quick, Stevie. So Jim Beach was right. So Dave Hall did the production, but actually Albie Shaw wrote it, and most likely Carl West, and then would have come out with
it was Dave Jam Hall.
But Dave did the production, but it did have the Carl West type of vibe.
What else did I like? You Took My Love. I wrote that down. Anyway, number 10, I had Whispers. Number 9, I Swear I'm in Love. Number 8, Nice and Slow. Number 7, I Will. Number 6, It Is What It Is. Remember, from the Rhythm City Volume 1 DVD CD package. If you want to go out and get that now, you won't be disappointed. Number 5 was the big hitter, You Make Me Wanna. Then I had You Remind Me at number 4. Number 3, Call Me a Mac, because I got it like that. Number 2, Seduction. How did Seduction not make number 1? Anyway, number 1, Can You Get With It? It's only a sexual. Hey, how many times have mine? I think that's the 3rd time, Nandy, that our number 1s have.
Yeah, well, great minds think alike. Seldom will always have.
Do you remember the 12-inch as well? Because the album mix was about 4 minutes. Like the 12-inch went on for 7 minutes. You have this Devontae beat and boom, boom, and then that vocal, that roaring. It's only coming in the background. And then that cheap funk in the back went on for like 7 minutes. What a 12-inch extended mix that was.
But it was, but it was our first. It was my. I mean, as I said, Calling Me Back was the first one. But when Puffy's driving him around and he's on the seat of the car.
Do you know what I think it was? I was in my early 20s then, and I was going to clubs, and I was, because when it come to women, I was a bit of a late bloomer. So when I was in these clubs checking these women out, and I'm hearing songs like Jodeci, Freaking You, and Can You Get it went with that early, because as men, we're in our peak at that age, aren't we? We're like dogs on heat, aren't we? But them songs really, really connected with me,
Yeah, I love the track. I mean, I wish Devontae had done more productions like that with other artists. He didn't, he saved a lot for Jodeci, but yeah, that was just my favorite Usher track. That's our top 10.
Sheldon didn't even make your top 10. What's going on? I never produced by Devontae.
I never heard that record ever.
What?
Never heard it.
Never heard Can You Get With It?
I would have to play it to see. Maybe I probably saw the video or something like that. I don't remember.
Wow. You don't remember it?
No.
It was his first major single.
No. Maybe. I just don't. It doesn't ring a bell.
You see, this is why we love Sheldon. This is why we love Sheldon Weekend.
He avoids Devontae swing at all costs.
Let me tell you, that record came out. I wasn't in the States. I was living in Germany at the time. So it was like
94.
I was in Germany. So, maybe when I went home to the States on vacation, I was watching some BET videos or whatever, and I might have saw it, because the video sounds vaguely familiar, but
yeah. Puffy's driving him. He's on a sitting, lying down on the trunk of the car, and then I think Devontae's beside Puffy, and they're driving slowly. They go to a school. I mean, it was it was the first single off his debut album, and it was just a nice slow burner and stuff. Yeah,
I didn't buy the first album. I didn't buy the first album.
Okay,
I wouldn't know, but the way y'all going on about it, it sound like y'all guys probably produced it. So I gotta check it out. You guys are breaking down the lyrics, the concept, the sounds. I'm like, y'all might be the Avila brothers over there. You know what I mean?
Oh goodness. I mean, okay. So guys, what we're gonna do is our top three Usher albums. So starting from number three. Let me get my stuff. Yeah. So my number three. Um, yeah, my number three was 8701. That would be my number three album because it had if you actually look at my top 10, a lot more some of the tracks were from there. My second Usher album was My Way because as I said, he had some really big beats tracks in there. But I spent the past couple of days knowing that we had this show, listening to his entire catalog, and just to be 100% sure. And I think one of the most underrated albums that's the Miscarriage of Justice is his debut album. I think he was probably, if it had come out, maybe if he was 2 years older when it came out, I don't know. It was, his Usher album only went gold, but the production. He had Chucky Thompson, Dave Hall, he had Devante, I'll be sure doing some stuff there. Um, you can just hear Faith Evans all over the place on it. It's a masterpiece. Yeah, as I said, Sheldon, if you have a chance just to listen to his debut album, it is probably one of a classic '94 R&B album, but it just didn't get the push because maybe he was too young and they didn't know really how to push it because it was a lot more mature songs, but it was just amazing production. I mean, I could have just would have had, I would say, six of those tracks in my top 10 if I didn't,
Wow.
but I would have given the game away. That I would have had six of the tracks in my top 10. In fact, I struggled to leave it out. That's why I had to have three of them as my number one. Um, I think Final Goodbye. It's actually the production
Hmm.
was really good, and he sings on it. So yeah, that's his amazing album. Yeah.
I think that
So,
it slipped under the radar for a lot of things. I mean, you called it, and I think that what it is that groups were really popular back then. For some odd reason, it was groups were more popular than like solo artists, and the songs probably just weren't. They wrote out all the heavy hitters, obviously, from what you all are talking about. But it just kind of like it was almost the equivalent when you saw Tony Thompson putting out an album from High Five, a solo album. Expectation was really super huge, and it just didn't resonate with people. You know, and for a variety of reasons, it just didn't catch on with people. But I'm gonna go ahead and give it a
yeah.
listen.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few songs that reminded me of Tony's album, but I think it was produced better. It just felt like a Bad Boy album
Hmm.
because of the production and stuff. So it just felt, because but he kept it, Devante, I'll be sure, and and Dave Hall and Chucky Thompson. I just love the album. As I said, I guess I just, everyone would think about Confessions because it sold 14 million, and My Way because it was, coming of age album. But I wish if I could speak, when I get to interview Usher, I will ask him his thoughts about his debut album, whether he just thinks that it just didn't get the love it should have.
I give
Yeah.
LA and Babyface, specifically LA, a lot of credit. They gave him time to grow and evolve because you know how it is. You put out a record, and that record, based on all the heavy hitters on the album, I'm sure that album was very expensive to make. So
Yeah, they get Puffy and said, okay, Puffy, do something with this kid.
right. So think about it: is that album was expensive to make, and when it underperformed, only going gold, that could have been a situation where they just could have just moved on. But they gave him space to grow. There's a 2 or 3 year gap, between that one and My Way. So he lived up
Yeah.
to his potential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had Brian Alexander Morgan on it. You had yeah, you had Eddie F doing some stuff on it. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Anyways, Sheldon, what's your top three in?
My top three. I'm gonna go ahead and give it to you, and just real quick on the album because it's very intriguing. You keep talking about it, but I think those I haven't. I remember the one video, but I think the smart thing that they did was when they were putting these albums out on him. they were also celebrating. They were tied into his ability to perform, his performing ability, and it kind of just those next albums that came after that, it just took him to the next level. So we didn't see that. I think they would have focused on a lot of his performance abilities visually. Maybe the album would have caught on. But my three are this. Here I Stand is my number 3 album.
Wow.
And the reason why my number 3 is because it's a curveball. Because when I heard it, I was kind of a little shocked because it wasn't in the vein of the previous 3 albums that he'd done. They were ballad heavy, and obviously they were inspired by his first marriage. So I liked it the way it was just a curveball. Album was very mature, a lot of strong ballads. It didn't have a cornerstone up-tempo record or a cornerstone ballad that anchored the record like other records in the past, but it still stood out for me. Of course, Here I Stand, the title track, was my number 9 record. Confessions is my number 2. Confessions, song for song, that album is so strong, man. A lot of quality songs on there, and again, each song has its own unique identity. And for him to go through different changes, different spaces with the records vocally, and I just love the fact that that's, like you said, Stevie, that's like a classic era in R&B where you can go buy a CD or whatever, and you can just let it play. A lot of strong songs that are there. My number 1 is 8701. The reason why that's my number 1 album is because vocally, I think that vocally he just really, for me, he just really came into his own vocally. I mean, he did a great job on the other 2 albums, obviously, but 8701 seems like vocally, man, he just took it up. He just went into another gear. So that's why 8701 is my number 1 Usher album of all time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. What about you,
I
Steve?
think it depends on which era of Usher you got into Usher, because there's other podcasts where they're a bit younger than us that I've watched where they swear by Confessions as like that's the ultimate Usher album, bar none. But my argument to that is, well, hold on a minute. We were there when Usher first came out. We remember that because we're 10 years older. So we've lived through the debut. We've come out of New Jack and 80s soul into his hip hop soul era, when his debut come out. So if you're from that ilk, I mean, what defies my argument is Sheldon's not even bloody heard it. But to me, that is to what, if you're coming out of that era, that is your go-to Usher album. Nothing else seems to come close. But like I say, it depends which era you got into Usher. And like you say, it's all opinions in it. But my top 3, it's tough because my number 1 is my number 1, but my 2 and 3, it's either My Way or Confessions. I can't pick them either 2 or 3. I didn't pick 87. I mean, that 4 album run of his debut Usher, Confession, My Way, followed by 8701. That 4 album run is an incredibly unmatched. What a run of 4 albums that is. The only reason I didn't pick 8701, I feel some of the production on it hasn't stood the test of time. I feel as much as I was wrapped up in the Neptune's production sound at the time, and I was hearing it in clubs, and I thought at the time, this is the most amazing production sound I've ever heard. 25 years on, some of them drum sounds now sound a bit clumpy. I don't think they have stood the test of time. Them snares, that boom hard. It's a hard club R&B sound that probably doesn't. But it was best summed up on that Khalees. What they did for Khalees, it was their trademark production sound, and that whole sound got spread a bit thin for me. Obviously they got a load of money chucked at them. They were producing left, right, and centre, and you would have bought a lot of records with that trademark sound they have. So I would. Some of the album production-wise doesn't stand. Yeah, harsh on the ear, as Chin Beat said. Doesn't stand the test of time for me, and that's the only reason didn't make my top 3. But Usher's my number 1. The debut album, because like you say, it had the who's who of the 90s true R&B producers on it, songwriter. Faith Evans was on there, like you say, Eddie F's on there. Puff Daddy's from his best stuff before he went a bit jiggy. Carl West, Dave Jam Hall. You know, it's just like you say, you're producing a 15-year-old kid, though.
Yeah, it was
songs
hard.
about being in relationships that, you know,
Yeah.
we're 20 years too soon for him. That's probably why. Probably didn't resonate with a lot. It's like, oh, can I really get into this 15-year-old kid that's talking about relationships?
And that's very useful, Stevie, when you made that point, because when you listen to, like, when Michael Jackson was a kid, 11 and 12 years old, he was singing songs that were the equivalent of that, but based on his delivery, based on his singing ability, he was able to just like pull it off. I mean, people kind of forget that he's a kid and he's singing these songs that are like that maybe somebody that's 10 years older or even 20 years older is singing. He's pulling them off. But I think you have a point, is that people probably didn't get it because he's singing songs, they're like adult oriented records. And it was kind of, or maybe it might have been a mismatch, even though the heavy hitters were out there. And, you know, but again, like you said, you know, talent is talent, and my man is he's doing it. I mean, for him to pull it off again, I didn't hear the record. I might have been turned off because I probably was like, okay, this guy's like 15 years old. So I just was like, yeah, you know, because at that time when that record come out, I was about 25 years old. So, you know, to see a 15-year-old, even though I love Call Me a Mac, but, you know, to see somebody that's like 15, I was like, I'll pass. But that era, like you said, that's my favorite era of the bad boy era, even though the 96, 97 era was great, but that 94 era, yeah, man, those productions that they did were really, really great.
It's a real overlooked golden period of R&B that, say, 90 towards the end of 93 going up to the end of 96. You know, it's a real, it's still, it's like a mine digging thing. You're going down a mine looking for gold. Well, and when you find it, if you're into R&B, you're finding gold in them years. I think very rated period of R&B.
Now, what's your opinion, guys? When you look in terms of like Usher putting the record out that he put out, he's got to be probably 16 years old, and then you looking at Tevin Campbell, probably maybe a couple years earlier, 3 years earlier, putting out a record the same way. He got a lot of heavy hitters on there. You know, a lot of heavy hitters on that album. What's the difference between the two in terms of that? I mean, did you all ever hear Tevin Campbell's Tevin album?
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think? You know, when you have a lot of young people, they're being produced by, at that time, and they're produced by all the heavy hitters, do you believe that sometimes that they can get kind of lost in the shuffle with the production?
I wasn't really thinking that deep at the time, like we're thinking looking back now. I mean, it's like, you know, we just made Can You Get With It? I mean, Namdi's number one. It's a very sexual song, but it's coming from a guy who's underage. It shouldn't sit well with us, really. You know, I don't know, but he's still, whether he's 15, 16, 17, he's still too young. You know what I mean? And that's
but it was the production, though. When you listen to the album, even if you listen to it today, it's you're hearing the musicality, the production, and you know, the whole vibe to the album. So you as I said, it's thing about Aaliyah when she came out and she did At Your Best,
all the other ones,
Back and Forth and stuff like that. I mean, you know, we're not thinking this is 13-year-old girls, you know, looking, you know, with a tank, you know, trying to look older. We don't think about that. You know, we'd moved on from, say, the Tracy Spencer and the Shanice looking like kids. Now they're trying to get these kids looking older than they are and giving them older songs. And actually, when you watch the Shanice the Tracy Spencer interview, she says Capitol didn't know how to market her because she was just 13 years old. How do you put it out there? But as you know, 94. Let me show you. I'll go through the albums that came out in 94. Boyz II Men's second album, My Life, Keep Sweat, Get Up On It, Blackstreet's debut album, Brandy's album came out. We had the Above the Rim soundtrack. Age Ain't Nothing of a Number came out. Crazy Sexy Cool came out. Janae came out. Then we had a Jason Lyric soundtrack.
Stop it, how spoiled we were then.
We had Jade.
Wow,
We
yeah,
had
right.
the Whitehead brothers. I mean, this is just a few tracks that came out in '94. You know, those. So just think about '94 with all. So Usher comes out, an amazing album, but it was flooded with so much. You had your choice. You're just spoiled for choice. So some tracks got
I'll be
overlooked.
honest. At the
Yeah.
time, that Usher, if you was in the UK and you was buying R&B, you was into that Usher. We were talking about the Usher album, but I remember my friends buying 12-inch singles from it, and we were talking about Usher then. We didn't ignore it. You know, I was very much into it at the time. It depends what, like you say, where you was or what location you was, but you know. But like you said, I remember. I'll tell you what, I do remember people in record shops complaining about they were complaining about these albums. A lot of them being too ballad heavy, being too slow. Because why is all this music? Why has it all gone? Why have we got 18 tracks? Why have we got 18 slow jams on an album? And fair play.
That was the style back then, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I remember, as I said, Blackstreet. They came out that '94.
Melvin Riley,
Changing Faces
Melvin Riley's debut.
His debut album
slow
came out in
jams.
'94. Yeah. Remember Madonna going R&B with Bedtime Stories? That was '94. Barry White, Practice What You Preach. He got reintroduced back in '94. So you just look at it was, and then we had the soundtracks, as I mentioned, Jace's Lyric and Above the Rim stuff that came out. IMX.
Where have you suddenly got all that data from to just drop on us there, Namdi? What you?
Well, you know what I normally do? I mean, I do the daily polls, but I always remember when I used to do the albums, and '94 was the one with the hardest one, because if you think if you had to pick an album, you had Boyz II Men, you had TLC, you had My Life. People are struggling to think, well, if we had to pick one, they all were big and different and unique, and you think about it all in 1 year, we would die for even just 2 albums this year.
Exactly.
Just
got
2
one this year.
albums.
Got me Usher in the collection now. It's come early in February. We might have a few others if we're lucky.
Yeah, but it was, oh goodness. I mean, there was the money invested in and actually, I love to Keith Sweat's get up on it. Because he introduced
he forgot about that one.
Yeah,
that was that 93, 94.
Yeah, that was '94. And Blackstreet, as I said, Blackstreet came out that '94 as well.
It was one of the best that year, probably the best.
Yeah.
What Cut Close? Was that '94? Was that '95?
Yeah, 90.
I think Cut Close came out. I'm not sure. I think let me see. I think they came out in '95.
I'm sure I bought the Cut Close out with the Blackstreet that week, if I can remember.
Yeah, Cut Close is '95. Right, yeah, because they came out with Keith Sweat first in '94 on Get Upon It, and then a couple of months later they came out with their album. They came out with their album, but yeah, it was it was just a solid time. '94, '95, '96, and then what happens by the time we get to '97? Bad Boy, the whole hip hop takes over, and everyone then slowly starts to push more hip hop and stuff. But yeah,
I'll tell you what I did like as well, that 94, 95, 96 era
Brownstone
was the fashion as well. It's a very classic looking, slick fashion. The what they wear, it was almost like street classic style, and I think again it went very fast, that style. All the way that all the R&B guys were dressed with the caps on and the black leathers, and the girls looking classy, Good era, really good, strong era.
Yeah, Low Key came out in '94 as well.
The album, oh my god.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, that's so. Now you can see, Sheldon, because Usher's album came out in that '94 with all this stuff happening, it was hard to really. So it wasn't until they went and
maybe in about 2 years' time we'll probably do a low key top 10 edition. We'll be digging deep there. The low key.
Digging deep, yeah. But yeah, guys, it's
real quick.
We
Real
say
quick,
so.
you had a good point there when you look at those albums and when you look at the ballad heavy stuff you talked about, Stevie. I think that's what gave the '90s so much longevity because you had the up tempo records and mid tempo records which were really dope, but the ballads kind of like it gave the '90s era music some sort of substance. And I just brought up some data real fast regarding the Usher because they said like him and Michael Jackson, the only two guys R&B singers that have a diamond album, which is over 10 million, and a diamond single. So check the
Wow.
stats. Okay, Confessions is at 14 million. Yeah is at 13 million.
Wow.
Then he got a single, DJ's Got Us Falling in Love. That's 8 million. 5 million is 8701. You Got It Bad is 5 million. Loving This Club is 5 million. 4 million is Burn I Don't Mind. And then 3 million is Scream, which is a single. Confessions Part 2 is a single. The album Raymond versus Raymond is 3 million. Then at 2 million, hold on one second. 2 million, he's got a lot of 2 million records. 2 million is No Limit, You Remind Me. And then those are the singles. Hey Daddy is a single. Here I Stand, 2 million. Then 1 million. Caught Up is 1 million. Superstar is 1 million. Let Me See is 1 million. Trading Places is 1 million. Good Kisser is 1 million. You Don't Have to Call is a million. Loving This Club Part 2 is a million. There Goes My Baby is a million. Little Freak is a million. Looking for Myself is a million. Moving Mountains is a million. And then, of course, Gold is Papers, Hard to Love, which is the album, and Hottie Toddy, man. So it's like, when you look at his catalog, man, it's just amazing. It was just a joy running through the catalog, and it just gave me a better appreciation for the depth of his catalog, his longevity. And I didn't realize, man, that the record sales that he's got going on, it's a lot.
Yeah, yeah. As I said, I think it's, for anyone to even talk about Chris Brown and Usher in the same sentence, or even Justin Timberlake, that it just seems like there is, there is an understanding of the difference. Chris Brown is, he's good for for the 2000s and stuff, but he doesn't have Usher's catalog. He doesn't have Usher's hits
But,
and stuff. And
but
and I
but it goes back to what Stevie said, is that you got to look at the era that we're in. So you got to look at the people who are coming up in the Chris Brown era. These people are born, let's say these people might be born like in like 1991, 1992. By the time, or slightly younger, they're born in the 90s. Like we're talking about at least 95. So when you see by the time Chris Brown comes out with Run It in 2005, they're 10 years old. So they're growing up into the Chris Brown run. And I was doing some research, and his, a lot of his his success is because he was making records. He also made the shift when music started to really become more collaborations between hip hop and R&B. I mean, you always had it, but that kind of padded his stats, so to speak, because there's a large portion of the records that he was making them with rappers. But in the context of that, Chris Brown is doing what Usher was doing, what Michael Jackson was doing, but he represents his era. In terms of comparing their performance and their skills, that's always going to be for discussion. But for this era of people who are probably like about 30 years old now, Chris Brown is like that guy, But he's in the tradition of Usher. Usher's in the tradition of Bobby, and all of them are in the tradition of Michael.
I feel like he's hit. I think it's almost like he's hitting now a new peak. He's probably had a bigger peak,
Who's that?
but this is a new, with the Super Bowl, with the new
Yes.
album, with the Vegas. Do you think this will be his last album?
I don't think it'll be his last album. I think that when you look in terms of what it is that the Vegas residency for me, gave people a reminder because he's always been consistent releasing records, but I think the Vegas Vegas residency reminded people of how dynamic he is as an entertainer, coupled with the Super Bowl. So it kind of puts him in another space of rare air. So even if he puts out another album, he doesn't necessarily have to dominate. He could just be putting out great records. It's
He's got his own label,
right.
so that's a
So, and
different
that's
thing
in the
now.
R&B, unfortunately, especially within the past maybe 35 years of contemporary R&B. It's always about which album is the next album. Almost kind of like has to be better than the one that you put out. Where before it was about just building the catalog. You're always going to have your 10 or 15 hit records, popular records, but to still be in the room putting out records, that was the big thing. So with him on the record side of the game, I think he's young enough to where I can see him putting out some records in the vein of what is out now. Now, when he turns 50, 5 years from now, that remains to be seen. Because the only person who's been able to do that is a Charlie Wilson. But 5 years from now, we'll have to see. Because again,
got married now, Annie. He'll be slowing down now. I
when
reckon.
you look,
this is third or fourth marriage, so don't worry about that.
But when you look at what Usher, if you put like the Beyonce and the Usher and Michael Jackson side by side, once again, Michael Jackson probably peaked. Obviously, I don't like to just lean on the Thriller, but you can't ignore Thriller. Thriller comes out when he's 25. Bad, he's doing what he's doing with Bad. By the time he comes out with Dangerous, Michael Jackson is probably about 33 years old. So obviously, Dangerous is right, boom. His peak, he tours. He doesn't come out with another album. Well, he comes out with the history that he does Invincible. So by the time he comes out with Invincible, Michael Jackson is probably somewhere around like 43, 44 years old. But he peaks. That's it for him. But when you look in terms of the trajectory, and no one stays on top forever, but when you look at the trajectory, Usher is in another gear at 45 years old, man. That's great.
Yeah, no, but it's going to be really impossible to bring in Beyonce and Usher when you think of Michael. But you sell over over 100. One album sells over 100 million, and because even with the age and time, because you think he started when he was 6 and stuff, so I think
this is what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Michael Jackson puts out his first record, okay, as an 11-year-old. Okay, Usher puts his record out at 16. Beyonce puts out her first record around 16. What I'm saying is this. People get so caught up in the Thriller numbers. I'm not talking about how many records can you sell. I'm talking about the scope of your career. But we know that because Michael Jackson came out so young at 11 years old. So by the time he was 40 years old, that's like dog years. I understand it, but I'm just saying just career in general. Because, yeah, you can look at different eras. But what I'm saying is that in their mid-40s, Beyonce is kind of like 42, so you can give it. But at the age window that they're at, both of them are headed into another gear. Now, where they stay there, who knows? But what I'm saying is that Michael Jackson peaked music-wise. 42 was like the gap for him, 42, 43. But when you see Usher at 45 doing what he's doing, he's in another gear. I'm not saying it doesn't make him better because I don't believe in who's the best. I just look at the tradition of how they're coming, but I give him a lot of credit for him to be 45, coming into a space where over the years you've had a Neo, you had Chris Brown, you had this one, you'd had that one, and he's still been in the game. And now he raised another gear. Same situation with Beyonce. Beyonce's coming through where you got Monica, you got Mary J. Blige, you got Brandy, you got this one. And to be able to come through all of that and still be at another gear, that's significant for R&B entertainer. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make it who's better or what's best. I'm just saying I'm great that at this stage in the game in R&B, we have that representation for quality artists who are great entertainers and capable of putting out the music. Because we've talked about different times where it didn't exist for a long time. You know, you had people putting out records, but it didn't exist. You know, so but I think this was a great episode. Great episode.
Yeah. In a future episodes, Stevie and Sheldon, we need to probably, I think we'll pick a year. I just want to go through 20 songs that came out in 94. So we may have to do an episode of our favorite albums that came out in 94. Portrait, All That Matters. Shantae Moore, Loves a Love Supreme. Shanice, 21 Ways to Grow. Immature, Party Time Is Over. Changing Faces. So For Real, Candy Rain. I think Brownstone from the bottom up just came out towards the end of 94. Aaliyah's Ain't Nothing But a Number. We had Usher, Silk. I know Prince came out with an album. Barry White, Keith Sweat. Anita Baker came out with her Rhythm of Love. I had I Apologize, and Blackstreet. We had Janae. Luther came out with Love Songs. Brandy, Boyz II Men, Mary J. Blige, My Life, and Crazy Sexy Cool.
I was lucky.
That's just a small sample.
To afford to buy them all, because I bought them all that year. Costly year that.
I had every album that apart from the Portrait. I didn't have the Portrait, but that's just a small sample of what came out in '94. I didn't include the soundtracks because soundtracks were massive. It just blows our minds that the kids who come out today don't know what it is to just go into a shop and think, okay, do I go for my Mary or do I go for my TLC? It's gonna. I remember that whole My Life. Now people would say, "Oh, it's an album of samples," but it was the most emotional, draining album. You're listening to it. I can still remember what I was doing in '94 when that album came out, and I was hearing it on the radio and listening to it, and then the upbeat of Crazy Sexy Cool and everything. It's
Nandi, so we've got a really good top 10 here, which always drops a good top 10. Our French viewer, Sauvignon. Is it Sauvignon? Fine wine. Pull her top 10 up, please. It's really good. Just 10. Just Called Me a Mac. You Took My Heart. Number 8, The Many Ways. 7, Smile Again.
Oh, she got off album. That's from the day. I
forgot about that Christmas record actually. This Christmas. And then we got forgot about Let's Straighten It Out. Great soundtrack. Brilliant cover version. Smile Again. Final Say Goodbye. And Love Was Here. An alternative top 10 there, but I like it. David Yard. Pull up David Yarding's one as well. What we got there. This is a good top 10. Let's pull it up.
Was he
Slow Jams, or Bedtime? One day You'll Be Mine. I forgot about that track actually. One Day You'll Be Mine. Hottest Thing. Can You Handle It? That's What It's Made For. Yep. Seduction. And a Mars versus Venus. I forgot about Mars. I need to check that out actually. Yeah. But what could one thing I can take from tonight is what we've been talking about with Usher is go out and buy his new album, keep him rich, because if we keep him rich, guys, he'll make another album for us. He'll make another. So don't just stream the album, giving him like 0.003 cents of a stream. Go and buy the new album, keep the guy rich, and he'll want to make a new album for us in a few years' time. Yeah.
Keep it rich, yeah. No, but guys,
by that time as well, he probably on his fifth. Was it how many wives has he had? 4, 3, 4, fifth wife.
Yeah, I think this made his fourth wife.
Yeah, he got a new album.
It's two. It's two.
Two. All right.
No, this is third marriage.
Third marriage. Yeah.
Yeah, it's third marriage.
Well, like he's saying.
Tamika Fox was his second marriage.
He's been getting with it since he was 15. Long time
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Who was he married to first? The second.
No, I think Tamika was the second. Yeah, because when I was preparing for this, I went through and there's personal. Let me see his first. I mean, not that it. So let me see. I mean, he first
He was with Grace. He was with
Yeah,
Grace, like in between. That was Grace was the long-term situation he was with in between. She's with Questlove now, but he was with her in between.
yeah. He after Tamika, he went with Grace, and after Grace, he's married this third lady. Yeah. So this is his third
And then
marriage.
anyway, guys, we're
Um,
reaching that point of the podcast where we're in the out. You know what? A '94 album, you get an intro, then you get some tracks, and you get an interlude, then some tracks, then another interlude, then some tracks, and then at the end you get an outro. We're at the outro
an
section
outro.
of the podcast now, so we need to leave the listeners
Yeah.
wanting more. That's all I can say. Maybe a bonus track
Yeah,
after
definitely.
the outro, if we're really feeling lucky today and generous. But we are in the outro section of today's podcast, I
Yes.
think.
So I guess we're in a future episode we're going to have producer Darren Lighty. Anyone might say, does that name? He's going to join us. He produced No More by Rough Ends. He produced what's the song with Donnell Jones and Left Eye?
You know what's up.
You Know What's Up?
Uh,
Yeah, he did
got-
that. He did. He produced stuff with Next, Coffee Brown, and Jaheim. He also was in the Flex.
Well, I'm going to say
with
the
LL Cool-
hardcore New Jackers on here will remember the Marley Marl compilation CD where there's a 2-minute Flex New Jack track. It had a Jackson sample, and it went for 2 minutes. And you'll remember that track. You remember that track?
Yeah. So he was at the Flex, and yeah, they even had a song on the House Party soundtrack. It's So Hard to Say Goodbye. Yeah, he was with Eric Williams. So I had a 3.5 hour interview with him, but we agreed that he was going to come on and do this live show with us. So we're gonna that was damn. It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday. So he's going to be our guest. We're just going to work out the details and stuff. We have coming up Dallas Austin. Are you guys ready for that? The Dallas Austin.
Dallas Austin.
Our favorite Dallas Austin. Yes. I mean, I would love to get Dallas on the show, but we're still working on that. But the Dallas Austin top 10, so that would be good. But we'll as I said, I'll
your number one be a Sugar Babes record, Namdi. Yeah, he did. He did a Sugar Babes record.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think a lot of mine it could be between Madonna and TLC or Another Bad Creation. I mean, as I said, I'm a big fan of Bedtime Stories. I bought that album.
No, you're pulling me up about picking Madonna at number one, and now you're telling me that you're into. Are you making this up, mate?
No,
are you making this up?
The Bedtime Stories was a good. I mean, anyone out there tell me? Did you know
Madonna? What's going on now? You're in the Bedtime Stories.
As my favorite all-time female artist, that's a different thing. But but the Bedtime Stories was a good track. Human Nature and Take a Bow. That was a good track. That was a good album.
So I'll take Madonna over Beyonce any day of the week.
As I said, as much as I joke around about the her country direction, I think she's probably top 3 Beyoncé, Janet when it comes to female performers. Yeah.
But anyway, let's wrap it up. Let's
We'll wrap it up. So guys, we always thank you for joining us. Thank you. Erotica and Bedtime Stories were good. I think Erotica, that's a whole different story. But anyway, thanks for joining us, guys. As I said, Dallas.
We got outros and outtakes. Yeah, that's code for what needs to be over.
Yeah.
Listen to all the viewers. To all the viewers out there, I say this every time. We appreciate you, wherever you're viewing from, wherever in the world, whatever time it is. It's the fact that you spent a couple of hours with us, going on with ourselves tonight. I honestly really appreciate it. Like I said at the beginning of the show, life is too short. I appreciate every time I see these two guys, and appreciate every time you watch live or you watch subsequently the days or weeks after you, you know, always drop a comment, because we always read the comments. If you can, drop a little comment. Seriously, we really appreciate it. Thumbs up, likes, and shares. You know,
Yeah.
really,
All of you. Yeah, we
honestly,
appreciate
really
you guys.
appreciate it.
Yeah, and one day we'll all have the same number one. We'll try and
so it's
try and get Sheldon to
Not a chance.
come over to the light
We'll
side.
have to surprise Sheldon.
Yeah. I
but
don't.
you know what? If that happens, they'll be like, you know what? The fix is on. The fix is on. How much did you pay me? Some sort of payola. They were like, hey. You know?
Yeah. Anyway, all right, guys. So we'll see you guys. We'll see you guys.